12th month in the time of the Eternal, month 3, day 5, 2024. The Eternal commands that his people pay close attention to Luke chapter 8. So, beloved, every event is put there, in its proper order. I have been let know that it is a message and teaching for each one of us in this hour, before what the Eternal has asked of us, and what is to come. He prepares us in advance so that we are ready before the events. So let's pay close attention, a lot of attention, to this, because great lessons of living water are there waiting to be poured in each of us. There we see, at first instance, the parable of the sower. We see that the seed fell on the road, the birds ate it. They are those who hear, they are dual in thought, disbelief comes and takes them out, does not progress. The seed dies. There we also see that the seed fell on the rock. It did not take root, it had no water, it dried up. These heard, received it with joy for a time, but turned away. There also the seed fell among thorns. These heard, but the cares of this world, which keeps them so busy, do not allow them to bear fruit, and they drowned. But some of this seed fell on good soil. Sprang and bore much fruit, 100-fold. A good and upright heart retains the word, bearing fruit with patience. And we see that the seed is the word of God. That is the first panorama we find there, in Luke 8. But there is a second panorama, a candlestick, a candle, a lamp. Where, the Eternal God says, that it is not lighted to be hidden. And he tells us, see, then, how it is, because he who is a good steward of the light will be given more. But whoever is not a good steward, even what he seems to have is taken away from him. Another panorama also appears there, the master's mother and brothers who went to see him. And, when they tell him, he answers, my mother and my brothers are those who hear the word of God and put it into practice. A fourth panorama appears there, in this chapter of Luke 8. He enters his boat with his disciples and, at his request, they cross to the other side of the lake, to the other side, there, of Galilee. And when they were halfway there, a storm came. The boat begins to fill with water. Everyone was in danger, and afraid of sinking because of the imminent danger that they were seeing. But the master slept peacefully. But they went to wake him up. The master rebukes the wind and the water. And these waters, then, remained, all tranquil. Everything stopped, everything calmed down. And he rebuked them, where is your faith? They were scared, but at the same time they were amazed. And even there, with the master in front of them, seeing everything they had seen up to that moment, they asked themselves, who is this, who commands the wind and the waters and they obey him? After this, another panorama, a fifth panorama. They then arrived at the land of the Gadarenes, on the opposite side of Galilee. And there, a man possessed by devil. He was demonized from time, without clothing, and his house, the tombs. When he saw, immediately, the master, those who were inside him cried out, what have I to do with you, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I beg you not to torment me. And when the Eternal asked him what his name was, he responded, Legion, because there were many. So the Eternal God freed him. He sent this legion of evil angels to the pigs. And they all died falling off a cliff, they fell down a cliff. And the Gadarenes, instead of celebrating this, they all gathered together and begged him to leave them alone, to leave. They had suffered material losses, according to them, and that was what they were focused on. And they did not see the great spiritual blessing and the very majesty of heaven that was there, in front of them. The liberated one wanted to follow him, but he was denied by the master himself. But he gave him a task, go and tell others what God has done for you. Following this, a sixth panorama. Jesus and his disciples returned to Galilee and a crowd was there rejoicing, welcoming him. And a man named Jairus, prince of the synagogue, prostrated before him and begged him to come to his house, because his little daughter was dying. As Jesus walked and the crowd pressed on him, a seventh scenario emerged. A woman with an issue of blood touched the end of his cloak and she was instantly healed. Then the master stops and asks, who touched me?" And everyone said to him, "Master, but everyone is touching you. They are all crowded over you, close to you." But he said, "There was a special touch, because virtue came from me power came out." Then, the woman came, she prostrated herself before the Lord, the mystery was clarified and God was glorified. And the woman went in peace, as the Master dismissed her. And an eighth panorama, or event, appears immediately. Another prince of the synagogue arrives bringing the news to the first one who arrived, saying, "Your daughter has died. Don't bother him. Do not bother the Master anymore." But Jesus immediately responded, "Do not be afraid, just believe and she will be healed." So Jesus entered the house of this prince of the synagogue. And many were there. And he took with him Peter, James and John, and the girl's parents. All the others who were there before were crying, but he told them, "Do not cry. She is not dead but she sleeps." But they began to mock and he cast them all out. He took her by the hand, to this girl, and said to her, "Maid, arise." And so her spirit returned to her, and she rose quickly. And the Master ordered them to feed her. His parents were astonished, but he commanded them not to tell anyone what he had done. The Eternal commands that we pay attention to this, step by step, to these events that appear there, in this chapter 8 of the book of Luke. The Lord has given us a task as a people. And he has made it known that it is very important for the people to understand all these things so that they are prepared for what is ahead. Then, he asks each of us not to take this out of our hearts, and to keep it very much in mind. And with supplication and prayer, each one of us, ask that he show us in all its capacity and completeness what he wants to let each one of us know with this. It is my request and prayer to the eternal God that this be so. May the Lord bless us.